It is about time that I finally review the SEGA Dreamcast. This console is one of the all-time greatest game systems and was released on September 9th of 1999. Yes, that's right. I was only 2 months old when this thing was in the market. There is really not much else that I can say about this system compared to others who have said stuff about this system. Pretty much a lot of the things I'm going to say about the Dreamcast is pretty much going to mirror what everyone else has said about the system. It truly is one of the all-time greatest consoles ever made, and honestly, if you've never had a Dreamcast before or don't even plan to own one, you are literally hurting yourself. You need to buy this system ASAP. I'm really glad to be an owner of a fully functional working Dreamcast to this day that works with the level high HDMI cables that I have for it, and it's so great to own a console this beautiful. At the time when it first came out, it really was one of the most technologically most powerful systems to date, and you can definitely see why. This console has aged very well compared to other systems from the past, and there's a reason why it's still a classic system to this day, and it is long overdue for me to be reviewing this system, honestly. So with that said, we are going to take a look at the console design. After all, that is the usual formula that these videos follow. So you can see that it's all squarish and everything. It's almost like the PlayStation a little bit, but except it stands on its own, even with a little circle tray just like that. And then you can also see that little triangle LED light, which would turn on if you powered on the Dreamcast, which, speaking of which, that's your power button. And then right there is your open button. You can clearly see that it's a top loading system, so you don't have to worry about disc trays or your game disc screwing up. And off the front, you have 4 controller ports right off the front of it, something that it had a massive leap over some other systems like the original PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, for instance. I mean, the GameCube and the Xbox also have 4 controller ports, but the Dreamcast was the first. So there you go. Then you have also some fans right there, which will allow the system to breathe. And right here on the underside, you can clearly see the control deck, and not to mention more fans, which again breathe out all the heat exhaust. And this is the back of what the system looks like. You can see that's your AC output, and then right there is your serial port to link to Dreamcast, and that's your AV output. And then there's more fans right there, and right there is an Ethernet port, a modem port, because the Dreamcast was one of the earliest game consoles where you can plug in your system directly into the internet to play games online, games like Unreal Tournament, for example. Imagine all the nostalgia that some people who in the comments are probably going to say just because of their experiences with this system playing online. I mean, seriously, there is nothing that this thing can't do. It's also compatible with using Windows CE, so it uses Microsoft technology, which would explain why the system is so, powerful. Now, let's take a look at the controller. This is what the controller looks like. It's pretty weird looking, I'm not gonna lie. It looks like some kind of spaceship, but, it still does the job. This controller is actually really awesome. And right on the top right here, you have the visual memory unit, which is basically the memory card for the Dreamcast. It's actually very unique. It has a D-pad with an A and B button with a sleep and a mode button. That's because if you save certain games on it, it would actually allow you to play certain mini games, which is really cool. And what's even more cooler is that the Dreamcast controller can support up to 2 VMUs, so you don't have to use just the one. It will use 2 of them. So essentially, if you had all 4 controllers into it, you would be amounting up to over at least 8 VMUs in total. That's awesome. So there is your analog button, which honestly isn't the best because you can actually easily slip your finger off of it, but it still gets the job done. Right there is your D-pad, which is actually really nice. And then there's this big start button, which is shaped like a triangle, which is weird, but hey, that works. And then you have your Y, X, A, and B buttons, which are good. And then you got the triggers right on the back, which I need to mention, the triggers actually feel pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie. Then you also see that the grips of the controllers is actually pretty good, so it isn't like the controller is uncomfortable. It's actually a very comfortable controller. I remember when I first got this system back in 2013, and I was worried that the Dreamcast controller wasn't going to be the most comfortable controller that I would ever use, but I'm actually really surprised at how well it works. And there you go, right there. You just plug it in, And then bada bing, bada boom, you are ready to play some Sega Dreamcast games. Oh man, I always get very excited every time I play this system, not gonna lie. So anyway, let's take a look at the amount of games that you can release for it. These are at least some of my personal recommendations. So the first game we have here is actually one that comes to most people's eyes, Sonic Adventure. This is without a doubt one of the greatest games on the Dreamcast. Some even say that it is the best game on the Dreamcast. Some say Sonic Adventure 2, but Sonic Adventure 1 is actually my favorite, but that's just me. Next is my favorite 3D fighting game on the Dreamcast, Soul Calibur. Seriously, I love that game to death. I still clock in so many hours on that game, even right now. So here's the next game. This is my second favorite 3D fighter, Deadolive 2. It's very, very good. Graphically, it's great. It runs at a very stable frame rate. And, well, the controls are very, very good. And it also has a PS2 port, just FYI. Next, we have Crazy Taxi, another Sega All-Stars title, which is also really awesome. True to the title, it really is a crazy game, and it's one of my top 5 favorite games on the Dreamcast. I'm just going to throw that out there. So here we have the next game right here, which is a launch title, Ready to Rumble Boxing. It's a game that you don't even have to be a fan of the sport. It's one of those games that's literally cartoonishly over the top. It's really fun. Definitely one of Midway's best games, and specifically for the Dreamcast. Then you have this game right here, Spider-Man, which honestly, I do kind of think the PS1 version was a little better, but if you want the best graphics possible, the Dreamcast version is definitely the way to go. It just takes some time getting used to as far as controls go. Then you have a very subpar game known as Trix Style. It's literally almost like some kind of futuristic, like snowboarding style type game. I mean, it has a decent concept, but it isn't the best in my opinion, but it's only for the hardcore fans. But here's something that's even better. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This is one of my all-time favorite games. I love the PS1 version, but the Dreamcast version, I have to admit, is better, only because of how better the graphics are. Not that that should be the main deciding factor, but still. Here is Rippin' Riders, which is part of the same series as Cool Borders. It was made by the same developers, Web Systems. Again, not very good, but it's still pretty playable, just like the older Cool Borders games. And it happens to be the only one that's on the Dreamcast. And here we have the last one of my collection, Atari Anniversary Edition, which is a compilation title consisting of old Atari games from the past. And speaking of PS1, there's also the Redux version, which is also available there. So that right there is my collection of Dreamcast games. I'm still working on it, but you can see that this console will give you years of enjoyment, especially with the games that I recommend. The ones that I would definitely recommend the most would definitely be Sonic Adventure, Dead or Alive 2, Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, that is if you have the money to afford it, among many others. This console really is a powerhouse and is a huge testament to how awesome Sega was in the video game console department, and proves that they should definitely be coming back with more. So they will also be coming back with the Dreamcast Mini, so I'm actually very excited for when that comes out. So if you want to play Dreamcast games, if you're casual, that'll be the best way to do it. So there you go. Buy a Dreamcast, it'll provide you years of enjoyment. Now, if you pardon me, I'm gonna play some Sonic Adventure. So ha ha ha. You guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back with more reviews. This is your friendly neighborhood reptile, signing off.